This is John Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on August the 11th in the year of our Lord 2026, and I've got some great information for you tonight. So let me go ahead and click Murtech on Rumble, take us over here to my Rumble channel, and this is the video we're going over tonight, episode 2006. Let's go ahead and jump into that and close out the live chat for right now and slide down here and click the show more button to open up the description box. Okay, we have information from Dan Bongino, Doug in Exile, Robert Gouveia, and Wendy Bell Radio with JD Rucker filling in for Wendy. But before we get into that, I do need to give some shout outs to MW8922581. Just started following my channel. Sully22 just started following my channel. Simply Zan just started following my channel. Looks like Mike Baldwin76 just started following my channel. Chase D. Mont just started following my channel. And Jimmy Patriot just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following my channel. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in, and I hope you enjoy the content. All right, let's slide down here. WBS reposted my episode 2005. Real News DFW reposted my extra 787C. X22 Report Official, I'm not sure about that, commented on my episode 2004. Viper Senior commented on my episode 2005. American Stephen Idge commented on my extra 574A. Whew, that went back a while, over 200 episodes. Amazing. Because we're on like 587 now. Patriot 619 commented on my extra 780DB. That was a week ago. Real News DFW and Stefang 101. Steph Inge 101 commented on my extra 787C. WBS commented on my extra 788A. And WBS commented on my extra 788B. So, thank you very much, folks, for reposting my videos. And thank you for your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So let me give this a thumbs up. There we go. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, let's get into this. Dan Bongino, Nope, No Escape, episode 2571. Let's check it out, see what that's all about. Let me get this up here.
There's a lot of questions. Now, all.com. Gosh, I don't know. It's because, guys, I said my AN a while back can work. I'm losing there now. Brickhouse Street Cure.
So there we
Bell,
go.
guys. I missed the bell myself. I had a little party for Paula. Worked out great. Paula did great work. Jasmine helped us out a lot. Great party. But I woke up Saturday morning, and usually I feel pretty good for an old 51-year-old guy who's like a rotting sack of meat at this point. Really, everything's broken. I haven't treated my body particularly well over the years between all the contact sports and crap. You know, you think I made a professional career out of this, right? No, I didn't even get paid for destroying my own body. So I'm usually getting by. But I wake up Saturday morning, and no, it wasn't because it was like a particularly intense Friday night party, but I'm old, like 11:30, we wrap up. Everybody, all my friends are old too. I don't hang out with 20-year-olds, you know? So, except one, my daughter's ex-boyfriend. He was a nice guy. He joined us for the party too, because we love the parents. So, but I woke up and my back was killing me. Have you ever had your back lock up? Anyone in the chat? I've never had this happen before. Now, I had a spinal injury, a disc injury. That was different. That I actually blew a disc. But if you guys ever had, they're too young. The whole crew here is like, this is like, these guys are, I don't even know if they're drinking age, half these guys in the studio. They look so young. I mean, I don't ask them their age. I don't even know it. I had to fill out a job application. Jasmine deals with it all. I've never had my back lock up, ever. It's the worst thing ever. The worst freaking thing ever. You can't even move. I go to my doctor friend. Thank you, Steve. Gives me some anti-inflammatory, like powerful stuff. And I woke up today and felt better. But holy Moses, did that hurt. Is this just an old guy thing? Folks in the chat, wait. Yeah. Mine is locked up right now. JDog3325. Bro, I feel for you. I've never experienced this. It totally sucked. I couldn't sleep. Paula was like, are you okay? I'm like, no, I'm not. I usually just lie because I don't want anyone to feel bad, especially my daughter. Daddy, are you okay? You don't want your daughter. Oh, that'll be fine. This is me. What, guys? If I had video, I should of me walking down the stairs. Here it was. One. She's like, Dad, do you need help? No, Amelia, I'm okay. I'm okay. She's like, why is it taking you 10 seconds per step? I've really felt horrible. Give me this anti-inflammatory. I'm ready to go. I promise I feel good today. I told you guys I'd never do a show feeling like shit because if I do, then you know, I don't want people to feel bad and I feel like, oh my gosh, I feel great. It was the most amazing thing. Look, moving around. Hey, get back in the ring with Tyson tomorrow. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So, no, there we go. We need the weekend update. I don't do those a lot. Okay, you know, personal life, who gives a shit, right? But it was kind of funny. Folks, I'm asked a lot about my experience working in government and having gone back to work for the Trump administration for the first year. I'm often asked, you know, hey, I heard you. I get this question a lot. We get it on DMs. We get it on email. People say, hey, I listened to you on your podcast with Sean Hannity. It's still up there. You can check it out. Hang out with Sean Hannity. He has a podcast. It's new. It's doing very well. And the show got something like 1,100,000 views, which was a lot, you know, for a show. I mean, it was a pretty new show. But I was glad because Sean and I really, you know, went at it for 2 hours. I mean, like we asked all the stuff you'd wanted to know about. Sean asked. So in that episode, he asked me, you know, like something to the effect of, you know, what really keeps you up at night or things like that. And, you know, I always say, well, not much keeps me up. I sleep okay. But what am I worried about? You know, one of the things I'm worried about is if you think the weaponization of government was bad pre-Trump 47 presidency and during Trump 45's presidency, folks, the Democrats have now given up any pretense of pretending they care about, you know, good, decent, limited government. They don't. They are going to use the government for every bad thing possible going forward. And folks, you can fire as many people as you want. And believe me, we put up a lot of guardrails and did 10% of the entire workforce at the FBI basically was terminated or left because they didn't like what we were doing there. You can look that up yourself. Again, I'm a results guy, not a bullshit guy like the zeros who pretend to be my critics. However, when a new government comes in the executive branch, a presidential election, folks, they can hire other people. And they're not lying anymore. This is why I opened up the show and said, what happens when commies tell the truth?
All right, I want to pause this here and jump over to this video here. Okay, I think I started the wrong one, but let's go.
Seat right there. So first, I wanted to play this clip, and there's a couple of things, a couple of pointers here I want to point out before we play. Caitlin Collins and Anderson Cooper talking about the president, the security threats as he was coming back from Turkey just, was it a month ago or something like that? I lose track of time. He had to switch planes, became a huge story. The media, of course, thinks they're entitled to know everything, including the security features of the plane. You're not. It's not for public consumption. I'm sorry. Not everything should be out there. I don't care if it's a Democrat president or a Republican president. We don't want to get the president killed because you want clicks. I want to just listen, though. Caitlin Collins says that someone was deceived in this. It'll make sense in a second. Play the cut. You'll see what I mean. Check this out.
Now, the Post is reporting that the threat was so severe, there was a second switch onto a third plane. The president was not on this plane at all. Instead, according to the Post, even as members of the press were boarding from the rear door, the president, who we just showed you climbing the front steps, was leaving the plane, leaving on one of these. Quoting now from the Post, he was secretly shuttled minutes later to a smaller plane, an Air Force C-32A, via an airport catering truck. As the president had said recently, there are many enemies of America who have their sights on him, and we use every tool at our disposal to address those threats. Is there any precedent for this kind of deception?
I mean, it's remarkable because even when the president goes to war zones before, which, you know, Trump himself has done, the reporters who are traveling with him are sworn to secrecy, but they know where they're going. But what this speaks to is, one, you know, the seriousness of the threat that they got when it came to this Iranian threat against the president's life, and two, the levels that they were willing to go to put the president in a catering truck. and to deceive the reporters who were on board, and even some White House staff, according to the Post, who thought the president was on board that plane.
Now, correct, like in the beginning of the show, I'm not Professor X, okay? I have like telepathic powers. Sometimes I'll put a clip out there and there'll be a little nugget of it that even I miss. But when we do the pre-show rundown, I was like, Justin, did you just catch it at the end? There's a couple takeaways, okay? The chat, by the way, right? There's a lot. You see what's going on in the chat? Okay, back to serious time. Karoline Collins says at the end that because the president's life was clearly in jeopardy in Turkey, that they had to make this grave decision. And believe me, I've never seen anything like that particular thing. So this must have been a really serious, what we call TTL, threat to life. That the efforts they went to deceive the press. It's not about you, Karoline. I'm not trying to make this personal, really, but this is the mentality of the modern journalist, reporter, CNN media hack, that they really believe that they put the president in a catering truck to deceive the press. It was meant to deceive the people who want to kill him. Andy, is this something? No one was trying to no one was even thinking about you. It's not about you. I cannot emphasize this enough, having been in this media environment forever. There's a lot of good people out there. I have a lot of colleagues who I love and respect, who are really great and are very humble, a ton of them. However, cable news is populated with people with egos the size of like Texas, but without any of the Texas values to back it up. It's not about you. Nobody, I promised in that security meeting, I've been in many of them. Dan, what do you know about being in a war zone with the president? I don't know, dipshit. I took Obama to Afghanistan and Bagram Air Base when it was a freaking war zone. You can probably FOIA that. What do you think, I'm making it up? I was in a war zone with the president. Nobody's thinking, well, how do we deceive the press? Nobody gives a shit about the press. We're trying to keep the president alive.
Stop it.
Get some help. Nobody cares. Media people, Karoline and others, and the press pool people. Nobody wants anything bad happen to you. Obviously, let me be clear. We're not trying to get anybody hurt. You don't have to be there, though. I've heard media people, I kid you not, folks, I'm not messing with you. They are always in the motorcade. Back then, they used to film out of the top of the truck. So I'm a new agent on the president's detail. I don't know when I got there, 2005, whatever. That's about the time. I get there in 2005. I'm on the President Bush's detail. And I remember it was my first motorcade, and you see these guys, and they're like hanging out of their truck, filming these press guys, a motorcade, like an in-town movement, like he's going to church or something. It wasn't any big deal. We weren't going to like a NATO summit. And I remember saying to one of the guys, like, what's that all about? They go, yeah, these media people call it like Death Watch in case something happens in the motorcade. They want it on tape. They know there's a threat every time they're with the president. You understand they don't have to be there. No one is forcing Karoline Collins or anyone else to be on Air Force One. If you don't like the fact that President Trump is the most threatened human being, probably, I kid you not, in the history of planet Earth at this point, there is no greater threat, then get off the plane. Nobody's trying to deceive you. You never, ever came up in the conversation. I guarantee you, not a single soul was like, gee, man, how do we deceive the press? You never came. It's not about you. My gosh, with these people. That's point number one. Point number two, I already made. Media people. Many, again, they're not all bad people. Even some of them at lefty networks I don't agree with, but some of them were respectful when I was there, and I reciprocated. I was never mean to anyone. But you don't have to be there. Nobody is forcing you to be there in handcuffs. You choose to be there understanding the risks. If you don't like the risks, then don't go and complain about it. I saw this whole big X thread this morning, Justin. People like, oh my gosh, I can't believe there was a threat. And like the media people, then go home. why are you, am I not right? It's like being a Secret Service agent on the detail and going, you know what, boss? I'm not really comfortable with these job hazards. It's kind of dangerous being around Trump. A lot of people want to kill him. Can I go home? They would be like, what the, are you smoking the pipe? No, not the tobacco, but the crack pipe. Are you smoking the crack? It's part of the job, dude. It's like working in construction on a high-rise building. Go, man, I don't like heights. I could fall. No shit. Another point. I love all these political commentators, the Folex MAGA type. Remember Tucker? Oh my gosh, what was he telling? Was it Ted Cruz? He was telling him something like, man, if the Iranians are trying to kill President Trump, like nuclear war and all this stuff. And then they're all like now trying to downplay the Iranian threat. Oh, there's no serious threat. There's no serious threat. They put the president on a freaking food truck to sneak him out of there because the threat was so real. I'm telling you, and by the way, don't tell me you have no experience. Shut the fuck up and sit down. Pardon my language. You know nothing about presidential security. You've never done it. You've never been in a security briefing. Sit your ass down and shut the fuck up. You don't know anything about anything. You're a goofy bow tie wearing loser. You don't know shit. So you can shut your mouth. You can't have it both ways. If the Secret Service is evacuating the president through a food truck to a backup plane, do you have any idea how serious that TTL, threat to life, had to be? To put him on a food truck, to get him on a backup plane to a backup plane? I thought we were supposed to nuke Iran. I'm not telling you that's ridiculous. Nuke Iran over there. You said that, did you not? And now, oh, no, the Iranian, no big threat, no big threat. How many times have I told you that the Iranian threat, they're not telling you everything because they can't. The things that appear in these intelligence briefings, not every piece of it filters out to the public. The threats to life, the threats against our industrial control systems and cyber attacks, the threats to rapidly reconstruct this nuclear program were very real. We're very real. They want it both ways. Now they'll just ignore this. And no, they put him on the food truck because he wanted a hoagie or something. We're from New York. We call them subs. But whatever word you want to use.
Okay, I'm going to pause that there. I apologize for starting the wrong video, but this is the video here that I wanted to share with you. All right, let me click on the Rumble link here and show you that this video does come from Dan Bongino.
Oh, the Iranian.
All right, this is the video I shared with you. I've given him a thumbs up. This video will be in my daily news wrap-up if you want to see more of it. Okay, let's jump back here. And looks like Glow has joined us in the chat. Anyone else want to jump in? Feel free to do so. It's wide open. Doesn't cost you a penny. All right, let's slide down here and see what Doug in Exile has to say about when Karoline Leavitt ends Trump critics with 18 wins in one day. But that's not going to end. I mean, just like Dan Bongino was talking about. I mean, these media people, they're just completely out of their minds. They've lost their minds, okay? All right? I would be extremely surprised if any of this information, of course, I don't listen to the mainstream media because I'd be sick to my stomach, all the lying and bullshit that they talk about there. But I would be surprised if any of these things that Karoline and Doug in Exile talk about will ever appear in the mainstream media, including Fox. But let's go ahead and check this out and see what it's all about.
I just invented a new segment. It's called 8 Minutes of Trump Wins. It's where I go to Karoline Leavitt because she is the messaging, the mouthpiece of Trump, telling you what their campaign is focusing on for their wins. We're just going to go through them. Boom, boom, boom. Rapid fire. Watch this. Here we go. First up. A year into President Trump's D.C. crime crackdown, the numbers are in. More than 16,000 arrests, nearly 2,000 illegal guns seized, and 25 missing kids brought home. The Make D.C. Safe and Beautiful Task Force launched last August, bringing federal, state, and local law enforcement together as President Donald Trump declared a crime emergency in the nation's capital. And look, this is my favorite. Pete Hegseth holding up, is behind this sign that Donald Trump is holding up, blocking his face. I just think that's kind of funny. Next up, this is under President Trump, parents are back in the driver's seat. States have opted into his historic education freedom tax credit. Parents access to life-changing scholarships for their children. Both of these two deal with children. Number one, they're finding those missing children and breaking up those rings. And number two, he's providing financial help for educating children. So he's the president that loves children. There's another winner. This is, she's quoting Secretary Kennedy with two major announcements on transparency in our food supply. We're proposing a rule that would end the practice of companies making GRAS, G-R-A-S, generally recognized as safe determinations without notifying the FDA. So in this case, this is like the fox guarding the hen house, where a company can decide if its own food is safe or not. And he's saying they're going to have to submit that stuff to the FDA. Next up, under President Trump, the United States Department of State has revoked more than 175,000 visas from foreign nationals who violated the terms of their visas, committed crimes, called for violence against U.S. citizens, defrauded Americans, abused our immigration system, etc. Third, big win in completely different categories. This is the Trump effect. Drug maker Bristol Myers Squibb on Monday, that's today, said it will spend about $2.3 billion in new manufacturing facility in Houston, Texas. The new site will create nearly 500 skilled jobs. Again, the winning just doesn't stop. I want to briefly this commercial for our buddies at Chapter that sponsor this show. Talk about wins. When I turned 65, I was in bad shape.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get it past this commercial here.
Everything, my channel, but most of all, it's going to link in the description of it. These are all wins, okay? President Trump has transformed our nation's capital from a crime-ridden city into a safe and beautiful haven for residents and visitors alike. The president's safe and
yes, but there was some algae in the reflecting pool at the monument there. So yeah, we can't. The crime, whatever. But there was algae in the reflecting pool. Okay.
Task force have made more than 16,000 arrests, including murderers, offenders, and drug traffickers. Olivia Wales says President Trump will keep calling left radicals like Abdul Mohammed al-Sayed, who sympathizes with terrorists and calls for defunding the police while drawing a sharp contrast with his own common sense, his America First agenda. President Trump will never let the United States become a socialist, communist nation. What's that about? I'm actually going to get into that in a report later today focused on Abdul el-Sayed. This is from a Politico article saying that Trump and the GOP have a new boogeyman, saying that they're just trying to scare tactic you about Abdul el-Sayed. We're going to dismantle Abdul in a video later tonight. We're trying to post at Central 1 p.m., 3 p.m., 5 p.m., and 7 p.m. That's the big quad club. Those of you in quad club want to watch all four. Next win, President Trump's D.C. law and order blitz marks 1 year with eye-popping haul of suspects. Here's from Secretary Doug Collins, proud to work with our president who puts veterans first. 40 new veteran clinics, VA clinics, opened under President Trump. Next up, from 3 hours ago, this is my favorite one, I think, because Democrats are indeed the pro-murder party. Crime data analyst Jeff Asher, so this is a independent analyst, says, quote, the 2026 U.S. murder rate will be by far the lowest ever recorded. Look at these numbers down here. We're getting the numbers down to the record low of our entire nation's history. And I can't think of a better campaign slogan to run on than under this Republican MAGA president, murder has never been lower. I wish the people that were murdered could have a say, because they would love to tell you what it's like how great President Trump stopped that kind of suffering for other people. Secretary Rubio targets the Cuban military procurement with new sanctions. So we're going after Cuba, putting pressure on them. Todd Blanche got confirmed as the Attorney General of the United States. He's our 88th Attorney General. So it's official now. He is the AG. Remember when Pam Bondi got canned? Todd Blanche stepped up in that role as the interim acting AG, and then he went in to try to get passed, and you have the Murkowski and Collins voting against him, and he ended up getting passed after all with all Republican votes. Of course, the Democrats, none of them voted for him, but we got him in office now. Here's Kush Desai says President Trump is slashing prescription drug prices while reshoring pharmaceuticals back in the U.S. That's again about that Houston facility. Here's more good news. President Trump names Will Scharf. You guys have seen him in the background of all of his Oval Office talks. He's the guy that's always handing Trump the little binder where he signs it for the executive order. Will Scharf is the next White House counsel. So we got new legal team there. President Trump unveils billions of dollars in mining tied deals and investments. That was from Harris voting. This is a win for us. I know it's a weird one to categorize that way, but it shows that the Democrats are doubling down on another very unpopular campaign to run on, and Kamala Harris is proving she's going to repeat what she did again that she did back in 2024. They picked terrible projects that Americans are against, like transing kids, let's say, and allowing biological men in women's sports. Well, now she's saying that proof of citizenship to vote, which is extremely popular with both parties, that she opposes it. And that's very good for us and another win for Trump. And then finally, Pat Adams, by voting to confirm Todd Blanche as the 80th Attorney General of the United States, Senate Republicans delivered a major victory for President Trump, the American people, and the rule of law. Blanche will fulfill President Trump's mandate to make America safe again. And then finally, here's Mike Davis says, Chuck Grassley's behind-the-scenes work proved decisive in Todd Blanche confirmation fight. Now, Chuck Grassley is a bit of a rhino, and I think there can be a good thing when you have a more conservative-leaning rhino able to advocate for Todd Blanche and speak rhinoese to other rhinos in the Republican Party. So hats off to Grassley for his behind-the-scenes work to help Trump out. That's all good news. Don't forget to call our buddies at Chapter. It really benefits this channel, and it will benefit you. You guys will write me and tell me your testimonies of your positive experiences. Call 631-961-8696. They brought you all these wins from Trump.
All right, there you have it, folks. All those wins. And it's amazing. It's amazing the stuff that he's able to accomplish with everyone and his brother and sister fighting against whatever he does. I mean, he blinks his eyes and they throw a court case at him. It's unfreaking believable. Yet he's able to get all these wins, and yet you won't hear about it. Okay, as you can see, this video does come from Doug in Exile. I am subscribed to his YouTube channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here. And let's see what Robert Gouveia has to say about election lawfare just got reversed in massive court of appeals victory. Well, that's good news. Another win, I might say. Let's check
election victory in Arizona, a very important swing state where we saw a lot of election problems in historical times. What happened, of course, after 2020 and after some of the problems with Kari Lake and Katie Hobbs perverting the machines and so on, the Arizona legislature passed some rules and passed some laws. And Doug Ducey signed this all into effect when he was the governor before Katie Hobbs came in. And what happened, of course, is the leftist lawfare hacks sued to stop any of these reforms from going into effect. And now they've just lost a big one. This has been being litigated for quite some time. And you can see who these people were. It's the Alliance for Retired Americans. How many times have we heard them before? Suing everywhere. In 2020, they have these groups that are essentially nonprofits that create standing. They bundle a bunch of voters together and they sue when they don't like election reforms that are now being implemented. They also have Voto Latino and Priorities USA, who sued to stop these reforms from going into effect. They sued Christine Mays, the AG. They sued Katie Hobbs. We had the Republican Party from Yuma intervene as a defendant appellant. And what is usually happening in these cases is this is a blue organization. They're suing. They don't like the reform. They sue a blue AG. They sue a blue governor. And the governor and the AG don't really defend it. They're just like, well, we'll allow them to win because we're actually on their side. We don't want these reforms either. And these are just basic, simple reforms. And now they just got blown out. And so this went up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And we just got a full court panel decision, everybody included, coming down and finding they lose. And what's the main argument? Well, it's standing. They don't have the capability to sue to challenge these things. So the original court vacated the injunction. Lower level court says, Arizona, you guys cannot pass these reforms. Now we're vacating those permanently. Now, what Arizona did is they passed two amendments. One was a provision that requires a county recorder, so all the various counties, to cancel a voter registration if the voter moves into a different county. Okay, so you're in Maricopa, you move down to, Pima County. You can't have your registration in both locations, and the county recorder governs your right to vote. So then Maricopa would cancel it because you would be over actually registered in Pima. Makes sense. So the voter matches the county registration. They hated that. Also, there was a provision that would criminalize knowingly providing a mechanism for voting to someone who was registered to vote in another state. Okay, they call that the felony provision. So if you move counties, you got to cancel it in the county you left and add it in the county that you moved to, obviously. And if you move out of state, then you got to be canceled, period. You can't vote if you don't live here. It's called residency. So they made that a felony. If you allow that to happen, then we're going to charge you with a felony. That's a big, big crime and a big problem. So each provision regulates the voting process. And the Voto Latinos and the Arizona Alliance for Retired Americans, they sued. They said, this is going to harm our voter registration and voter education efforts. And you can't do this because we need these gaps in your integrity to exploit so that we can get people registered all over the place. Now, the en banc court held that the organizations lack standing. And although they do have standing to challenge the felony provision, the full panel said that the standing to sue doesn't mean that you're going to win. And ultimately, even though you can sue under the felony provision because you might be prosecuted for this, you are going to lose on the merits. And so the full decision came down. Let's hit the highlights on this one. As you can see, back in 2020, Arizona updated these things. County recorder needs to cancel somebody if you move. Then the organizations, including Voto Latino, can't even actually say vote in English, they sued. And the lower level court agreed and granted a preliminary injunction saying they win. Why? Because we can't register people the same way, which is kind of the entire point. So now they're getting vacated and this is getting remanded back down. Their main arguments are, you guys lack standing to challenge the cancellation provision. You have not shown that by forcing somebody to cancel in a place where they're not living anymore, that is some type of an injury to you. And so we vacate the injunction as to that provision. Now, second, we also hold that you will have standing for the felony provision, but you're unlikely to succeed on the merits. So you can sue, but because of the requirements under a preliminary injunction, you're not going to meet those. You're going to lose on the merits when we actually litigate this thing. And so therefore, there shouldn't have been an injunction that was granted in the first place. So here's a little bit more. And so again, they vacate the injunction as to both. So it's a major victory. Now, again, the cancellation says that when you move from one county to another, you have to get re-registered where you're living now. Now, the Voto Latino group, they said young Latinx voters, they're still using that name, are now not going to know what to do. They moved to stop the cancellation and the felony, and they claimed that all of this is unconstitutional and overbroad, and so it's been accepted by the full court. So again, as we mentioned, standing is something that we dealt with a lot in 2020. You remember many of our lawsuits were all dismissed on the same basis. They say the law will cause recorders to cancel new registrations instead of old registrations. So you can't allow the cancellation of anything across the board. But ultimately, this fear cannot support standing because it is highly speculative, okay? The law, nothing in the law arguably requires county recorders to cancel a new registration. They're saying you're going to cancel our new registration in the process of canceling the old. They say, what? Where are you seeing that? It's not in the law. And the record confirms that the state and the counties have longstanding procedures in place. If election officials determined that an individual is registered in multiple counties, only the old one will be canceled. So you're complaining about something that's not going to happen. In fact, it's even in the election procedures manual saying it aligns with the guidance, and you point to no evidence at all that election officials are going to abandon this rule. And you guys even conceded at oral argument that there is no evidence in the record that Arizona is canceling a voter's new registration under these longstanding procedures. And so if you can't show an actual or imminent injury, the only thing that you're now left with is that you're going to have to educate your group about these things. But that is not a concrete injury. Loss of time, expending resources to go explain this when you're registering people or to go train your people on this, that, oh, you just can't, automatically submit a new registration. It's going to be canceled over here. That's not an injury sufficient enough to allow you to sue. Now, in the end, these organizations, the Latinx Voto Latinos, have not clearly shown that it is likely that this affects or interferes with their core activities. So at this stage, they have not established that there is a concrete and particularized injury in fact. Now, if something changes, if there is an injury, then I'm sure they'll come back. But our duty right now is to decide the case before us, not to the cases that we may foresee or that may pop up in some speculative fashion in the future. So we trust that future panels will decide these questions if it comes back and it is a problem. But right now, you lose. And so no dual registrations. The law is now in effect. Now, this is a big one. We're going to charge you with a felony if you knowingly provide a mechanism for people who were registered in another state to vote in Arizona. And this should be across the board. Now, the organizations argue that this is going to chill our voter registration. We're not going to want people to go out there and just register everybody hand over fist. Oh, yeah, no, just fill it out. Nothing will happen. Oh, you live over there? Well, how often are you in there? Nobody's even asking those questions. Are you registered to vote in Arizona? No, I live in California. Shut up. I don't care. Fill out this form and get registered so we can send you a ballot. Okay. That person knowingly does that, knowing now that a person lives in California or doesn't check and just does it without following up on that. Now we're going to hit you with a felony, which is how it should be. Now, they have not been prosecuted under this, so there is no specific harm yet. But the court goes through some standing analysis and says, you might be charged, okay? You're actually in this process. You're registering people to vote. You're doing it in Arizona. You may come across somebody who is not living in Arizona and put them through the registration process. So therefore, we will say that this is not that speculative, okay? Like there is a credible threat that you could be hit with a felony, which is the whole point. So you do have standing. You do a lot of this. Now, you do engage in voter registration and voter mobilization efforts. And so they're very mad about this. Now, this is a ban on knowingly providing registration. And there is a credible threat of prosecution, which is exactly right, honestly. Like the whole point of this is to go after these people. So will you be impacted? Maybe. And accordingly, we're not going to kick your claim based on standing, but we are going to kick it based on the fact that you're going to lose. Now, ultimately, you are going to engage in conduct that might be protected. The felony provision might prescribe that conduct, and there is a credible threat. So this could be an injury in fact and allow this to proceed forward. But now that you can sue, let's weigh the merits. Okay, standing is just whether you can even be here in the first place. Yes, you can be here. There's at least a sufficient claim to get in the door. But now we're going to analyze your argument, and your argument fails. You're not likely to succeed on the merits of this. You want an injunction. You think you're going to win. You're going to suffer irreparable harm. The balance tips in your favor, and the injunction is in the public interest. You're basing all of this on vagueness and overbreadth, saying we don't really know what conduct is being criminalized. And their reading, though, is that if there's a mechanism for voting, they say that's enough. But that's not exactly what this all actually says. First, in the context of this felony provision, a mechanism for voting cannot sensibly include everything a person must do in preparation for voting. The process for registering is separate from casting a vote. And so under their reading, that could include a number of precursors like moving to Arizona and more, but all that is unlikely. The only example of mechanism for voting, the felony provision, provides an instrument, not a process. That instrument is an early ballot. And it targets illegal voting. None of this is trying to criminalize people who are legitimately here. And so since this is about illegal things and you do legal things, they're not criminalizing what you're doing. None of the listed actions implicate conduct before voting, like registering, so a mechanism for voting should be interpreted consistently and include only a ballot and a ballot affidavit envelope. And so therefore, you are unlikely to succeed on the merits because the felony provision does not criminalize voter registration and mobilization. As long as you're not doing anything illegal, you're good. So the district court, once again, abused its discretion by granting a preliminary injunction. So ultimately, the Court of Appeals says, we hold that you lack standing under the cancellation provision. You have not shown a concrete and particularized injury as to that issue. And we also hold that your arguments on the merits about the felony provision also fail. The organizations are not going to succeed. The plain meaning of the provision confirms that mechanism for voting includes a ballot and a ballot affidavit envelope. Knowingly giving somebody who doesn't live here a ballot and an envelope, that's the problem, not registering other people to do it. So because you've clearly not shown that they have standing under cancellation and their challenge to the felony provision is not likely to succeed, we vacate the lower court's injunction, which has been in effect, and we remand this for further proceedings. And once again, they lose. And so it goes on with concurring opinions and more. But the decision now vacated and remanded back down. The injunction is now gone. And so Arizona can enforce these very common sense basic laws. But as we've seen, not only in Arizona, but around the rest of the country, these various groups don't want any of this to happen. They want to register every single person they can possibly imagine, get them on the list, make sure ballots go out to everybody, don't want any threats of felonies or criminal prosecutions coming against the people engaged in this type of work. And we're happy to see the decision handed down from the Ninth Circuit because, man, this can also trickle down to all of the other states in the circuit here on the West Coast. So Good news there. And leftists now blown out again. Good decision from the Ninth Circuit. Hopefully we start to see more of these reforms because they're very common sense. Why would we want voters registered in various counties? Why would we want voters getting ballots and voting if they don't live in the state? We don't. Right. We got to fix the list, fix our elections, and save America. So,
all right, there we go. I call that excellent news. Win number 19, incidentally. So let's just go ahead and jump over here and show you that this video does come from Robert Gouveia. This is the video I shared with you. I've given it a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back over here. And you're right there, Glow, on that for the reflecting pool. I was just being sarcastic. Now we have Wendy Bell coming up here, and next week, folks, she's going to be moving to 10 a.m., her show. If you watch her, I know that a lot of people that watch my show also watch Wendy Bell. And she used to be on, like, I think it was 7 o'clock, wasn't it, Glow? And then she moved to where she is now at noon. But I'm not sure why she did that. I know when she did it, but I never, ever caught the reason why she did that. You know, I thought, oh boy, that's a pretty bold move to do that. And she definitely lost viewers when she did that. Glow, do you remember, did she give a reason why they moved to the 12 o'clock spot when she was doing so well in the early mornings? If you can, give me a chat on that. But at any rate, let's go ahead and get into this. J.D. Rucker is filling in for Fauci's shame in the U.S. playbook. All right, let's check it out. Okay, here we go.
Amen to that. Yes. You know, there's nothing wrong with the occasional technical difficulty because it reminds us that we're human. It reminds us that things can be taken from us at any moment. Case in point, California. You've got an activist attorney general there, Attorney General Bonta. He goes by Bonta, and he thinks, you know what? Those Ellison guys, that David Ellison guy, trying to buy Warner Brothers, trying to make a super conglomerate Hollywood thing. Well, he wants to stop it. And if he's not careful, if he doesn't come to the table pretty darn quickly, he's going to end up losing out. It'll be an FAFO moment, fooling around and finding out. According to the California Post, David Ellison plans to a Paramount exit if prosecutors refuse to negotiate by the deadline. He's given them until October 1st. That's the deadline. And guess what he's going to do? If they don't come to the table and stop this pettiness, stop this idiocy of trying to block their merger through a bitter antitrust case, if they don't come to the table and get things straight by October 1st, Ellison's still going to buy them, but then he's going to move them out of California. Could you imagine this gigantic studio that employs tens of thousands, maybe if all things told, maybe hundreds of thousands of California employees in Hollywood, across LA County, outside of LA County? Imagine if he were to just yank it and move it to Florida or Texas or even Georgia. Georgia's been trying, by the way, to become the new Hollywood for a long time. So we'll see how that goes. According to the article they have over at the New York Post California edition, Paramount's board has approved a plan to move the Hollywood studio out of California if the state's Attorney General, Rob Bonta, doesn't agree to settlement talks in his bitter antitrust case by October 1st. Paramount CEO David Ellison told his top lieutenants last week that his company would relocate to Tennessee. I didn't think of that one. That's a good one. Texas, Georgia, or another state if Bonta refuses to come to the table in his case opposing Paramount's $110 billion acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery. The mogul discussed the ultimatum during an hour-long lunch meeting last Wednesday with Paramount's 12-member executive leadership team on the company's storied Hollywood lot, according to Puck, which I never read. It's funny because I used to, those who maybe don't know the story, one of the reasons that I'm out here in California was because I wanted to be in Hollywood. And knowing what I know, seeing this sort of disgusting behavior from not just the politicians, but also Hollywood itself, because they've been imposed. They're like, oh, we got to do something. We can't let those MAGA conservatives take over Warner Brothers. We had Netflix. Netflix is so woke. Netflix wanted to buy them. Why didn't they take that inferior offer? And of course, the reason is because it was an inferior offer. Netflix was in the driver's seat. They were the ones. They had the better offer, not necessarily the better offer, but their offer was good enough that Warner Brothers was willing to take a little bit less than they would have with Paramount. But Paramount just kept going up and up and up and up and up. And then next thing you know, they're in the driver's seat and everybody's hopefully going to be happy. Now, I even as a California resident, I would love to see Bonta push it and then enter the find out stage. There are obviously a ton of corrupt politicians out here. We've got in LA, just the two candidates, Nithya Raman and Karen Bass, are just absolute disasters. Everybody knows about Gavin Newsom and his alleged potential, almost certain, unfortunately, replacement in Javier Becerra. But Rob Bonta he falls into the category of true dirtbag. I mean, he's just a bad person, and not for, I'm with like Javier Becerra. I accuse him of being possibly demonically possessed. That's how bad he is, working directly for Satan. So I guess that's pretty bad. But Bonta, I think he just enjoys being a nasty, nasty person. So I, for one, would love to see this happen. I know it's wrong. I know I should be like, oh no, we want everything to be hunky dory in my home state, and I do. I'm not like a masochist, but my gosh, my goodness, would be funny if Hollywood got uprooted and if others started doing the same. They were making the case in Texas. I don't know if you guys recall seeing that a few months back. You had, of course, Matthew McConaughey. You had who do you have? He had like Billy Bob Thornton with him, and some other a couple other actors. Did he have Woody Harrelson? I think Woody Harrelson might have been involved, and they were basically trying to get Texas to make a play to bring Hollywood to Texas. Get the legislators to make some sort of offer so that studios would start moving to Texas, where they say it's just much better, much easier to be able to make movies, more freedom, less having to bow down to woke California. And I supported it. I mean, even out here, knowing that it would impact the economy, well, we do it. We really do. If any state, they're basically a nation. If any state needs to be smacked down and humbled a bit, brought down to a level that is, I guess, more manageable, it would be the state of California. So that's probably the only time I'm going to do an entertainment story here on the Wendy Bell radio program. Not because I'm against entertainment. I am, but that's not why I wouldn't do it, but because it just bores me. I mean, am I the only one that sees all of this stuff, all of the various things that are happening in Hollywood and in music? It's just gotten so boring. There is nothing is shocking anymore if it comes out of Hollywood. The most shocking thing that can ever come out of Hollywood or music is something wholesome. When you hear a wholesome story, it's like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. You look back, you look at, like, for example, the old Oscar awards, and you would hear during the Academy Awards, you would hear people regularly, thank God. And you just don't hear that at all ever anymore, because they are heathens. They have found a new God, and they're willing to back that particular God. So again, I know some of you missed yesterday's show. Quick intro before we get to the first break. I am JD Rucker. I am guest hosting the entire week. Rumor is that Wendy is out. She's currently sawing down as many flock cameras as possible across the nation. Her intention is to eliminate the surveillance state in its infancy before it really becomes a thing. And then, I'll have to talk to her about Ring cameras. We might have to team up and go door to door, literally trying to get those fixed up. But in the meantime, taking down the flock cameras, that is the mission. And I would say that it's a righteous mission. We don't want to be surveilled. And you won't find very many issues that are so universal that, talk about bipartisan. I think if you were to find people, of course, they'd have to understand what flock cameras are, which in Western society, even here in America, outside of the I guess the knowledgeable people, such as those who watch and or listen to Wendy Bell Radio. Outside of that, there's probably a whole bunch of people that don't have any idea what a flock camera is. But those who do, universally are against them. I've never seen so much unity between left and right. I mean, everybody's libertarian when it comes to those cameras, because we know what they can do.
Yep.
And so kudos to Wendy. And Doc Wombat asks, what the flock? Yes, that is a great question. And it is one that's being answered every day. I think that they're going down. You already have, I think, a dozen cities so far that have canceled their contracts just in the last few months. I would imagine that as a company, either they're going to have to wait for a Democrat to get in the White House again, or they're just going to have to figure out some magical PR thing that says, oh no, we really are just for traffic cameras. Nobody's going to believe them anymore. They've demolished themselves. They tried to get a contract out there. They tried to make it to where they could actually put all their cameras on Uber and Lyft. Sorry, not going to happen. After the break, we're going to talk about Anthony Fauci. It's shame, it's tremendous at this point, as well as how it combines with the Democratic Socialists of America right here on the Wendy Bell radio program.
All right, there you have it. Let's go ahead and move it up there. It's I don't understand why there's a difference in, like, the music. I mean, they played a little music, but you could barely hear it. And then when he comes back from the break to, go into his next segment, like Wendy Bell has some music intro, but it's just like silence. And JD has to kind of guess, when to start talking. Whereas if there was some background music, I mean, if he was off 2 or 3 seconds in starting to talk, that's not a real problem because you've got the background music that people listen to. But if he doesn't have the background music, then it's just like dead silence. So it's like, okay, what's this all about? So I'm just curious as to why there's such a difference there between, Wendy taking breaks and coming back and JD. Uh, Brock, could probably explain that, and maybe he has, and I just didn't miss it because, when I'm listening to Wendy Bell, I'm going, I'm updating Murtec.com. I'm going through and checking out these other channels for videos that I need to share on Murtec.com. So sometimes I don't catch, a lot of times, I don't catch her entire show. And there's some talking she does in the background when she's on break that I don't catch. But let's go ahead and
Silver's down.
get this up
For
to
those who
his
don't know, I
next
am a man of
segment here.
faith, and I can.
Here we go.
Here we go.
And we are back. You know what's amazing is being able to come on the air with you all today. That is amazing. And I, for those who don't know, I am a man of faith, and I consider myself to be one of the most blessed people in the world because I have the opportunities such as this to speak to you. One of the things that got me started in this business in the first place was actually COVID-19. I know that sounds crazy, but the whole COVID thing impacted me, impacted my life. And I thought, you know what? Got to look into this. I got to dive in. And I was amongst the first people way back in 2019 to first start ringing the alarm bell about, hey, something weird is happening in China. Something strange is going on. And, but it turned out, and I corrected myself pretty quickly. It's like, wait a second, this might not be what it appears to be. Something is funky, and don't trust anybody who tells you it's bat soup. Of course, one of the people that said that it was bat soup happened to be Anthony Fauci, and his idiocy has and continues to be something epic. Yesterday, we learned something even worse, something much harder than to swallow than just, oh, he's a narcissist. It was bad enough hearing that this guy, thinks, oh my gosh, it was another Fauci 5. We saw that in his diary, how he was so happy. It's like, so many people died today, and I got to be on the television 5 different interviews. This is the third Fauci 5 that I've done so far. This is amazing. Narcissist. And yes, I would say a psychopath. But what we learned, thanks to Senators Ron Johnson and Rand Paul, what we learned about his texts. Wow. And we've only gotten one. I mean, I'm a little bit concerned about what this means for the future, because after one text, it's already pretty darn bad. We've got a story over at jdrucker.com. Fauci's shame is the DSA playbook. Is the DSA's playbook. You want to see what the DSA is doing and why they're doing it? Has nothing to do with medical. I want to make sure that we understand. I'm not suggesting that there's that the DSA is responsible for the vaccines, or that the DSA is responsible for the pandemic or the next pandemic or anything like that. Now, they might be responsible for monkeypox, but that's a different story. No, I'm talking about the overarching, the foundational, really, concept of authoritarianism that we saw with Anthony Fauci and that we're seeing with the rise of the DSA. According to the article, in January of 2021, while pregnant women across America were being told the COVID shot was a settled question, Anthony Fauci sat down with his government phone and typed out a sentence he never intended the public to read. The fever and cytokine responses that commonly follow a second dose, he wrote to Rochelle Walensky and Vivek Murthy, could be associated with miscarriage in the first trimester. Now, surely something like that we would have heard about that back then, right? No, not at all. We didn't hear that. We heard something very different, which we'll get to here in a second. The message released Monday by Senators Ron Johnson and Rand Paul. I wish Ron Paul was back. From a trove of more than 34,000 texts recovered from Fauci's device is not merely a scandal about one man. It is a portrait of a religion. And that religion has a second fast-growing denomination organizing openly inside the Democratic Party under the banner of the Democratic Socialists of America. The connection is not a stretch. It is the whole point. Both the COVID technocracy and the socialist vanguard rest in the same article of faith, which holds that an enlightened few may deceive the many for their own good. Plato called it the noble lie. Lenin built a party on it. Fauci texted it. And as we'll hear in clip 1, he was very proud of the results of his lies.
Approximately 20,000 pregnant women have been vaccinated with no red flags, as we say, and this is being monitored by the CDC and the FDA.
Oh, that guy. You know, if I could do any impersonation, I would love to do him. I would talk in Fauci voice all day, not because I like his voice, but because it has become symbolic of the aforementioned narcissism, as well as what I believe to be a full-blown psychotic nature to him. But also just because I'd love to be able to clown him a lot more. But this isn't just about a man who put his own career, his own fame, his own fortune, his own power ahead of the well-being of the nation. This is about a trend. And this trend is spreading across the United States of America right now. Again, when I say the Democratic Socialists of America are using his playbook, it's not because they're trying to do anything medical. It's because they too believe in the noble lie. They're willing to lie to you. They're willing to lie to me. They're willing to lie to anybody in order to achieve their goals. They believe that destroying the United States of America is the pathway through which they'll be able to make things better, at least better from their perspective. But it's not out of love. It's not out of concern. It's not out of, we just got to improve life here in America. No, they find America to be evil. They think that we are empire, as they like to say. Not the empire. They actually just use the word empire. And they're not the only ones. This is something that's been happening for a long time. And after the break, we will dive deeper into what it means and how the DSA is playing the Fauci playbook.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and pause it there. This video will be in my daily news wrap-up. JD gives good information. He really does. I mean, his delivery isn't as interesting as Wendy Bell's, but he does give out good information, and that's why I'm sharing him, because of the information. No news, no nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth. All right, so let's go ahead and jump over here. Click the Rumble link. Let me show you that this is the video I shared with you. Wendy Bell Radio with JD Rucker filling in for. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's go ahead and jump back here. And we've got some chats in here from Glow and Debbie BS. I'm just curious as to why nobody else jumped in there. Is something going on tonight? Is it WNBA draft or something that where they're drafting a couple of former NBA basketball players into the Women's National Basketball Association? I don't know. I heard that was happening, but at any rate, let me go ahead and copy the chats in here. And let me remind you folks that these videos that I've shared with you are videos that come directly from the producer. I've got the links to the videos here in the description box, as well as the links to the producer's channel in the description box. And these videos that I share with you here are videos that I've posted on Mertech.com, where I have over 40 no nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. This is your one stop shop for information that you're not going to get on the mainstream media. Now, I'd like to share all of this information with you, but unfortunately, I don't have the time to do so. But that's why I've put together Mertech's Daily News Wrap Up playlist. Okay, it says I have 23 videos here in my playlist, about 9 or 10 hours worth of great information. As I said, we're going to start off with Wendy Bell Radio, where we left off just a moment ago. Then move on to Dan Bongino, where we left off. Vince is back on the Bongino Report. I'm going to share his episode today. Jump into X22 Report, We the People News, On the Fringe, The Steve Deace Show, The Sean Spicer Show, Matt Moore's TV, And We Know, AP for Liberty. A ton of information here, folks. But as of right now, go ahead and take a break. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut, or a sandwich and a soft drink, or a beer, maybe a nice glass of wine and some cheese. And meet me back here in about 15 or 20 minutes. Give me a chance to get this all set up in Rumble Studio. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for being here. I really appreciate that. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.